The Rust Bucket's arrival, the UES Defiant drifted toward Nexus Station like a wounded animal seeking shelter. Against the backdrop of gleaming alien vessels, the human ship looked like something dragged from a scrapyard. Its hull a patchwork of mismatched plating, welds visible like scars across its surface. Dull gray metal caught no light, reflected no glory. Where other ships bore the proud symbols of their empires, the Defiant wore only the faded emblem of Earth, barely visible through layers of what appeared to be hasty repairs. Captain Jace Voss stood on the bridge, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the massive alien fleets arrange themselves around the diplomatic station. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering and artistry. The Valorian ships like crystal cathedrals, the Kyrian vessels sleek as predators, the Sarathi craft elegant as dancers frozen in space. Hundreds of them, representing dozens of species, all gathered for what would likely be the last peace summit before war consumed the galaxy. "Sir?" Lieutenant Nera Blackwood's voice carried a barely controlled edge as she monitored communications from her tactical station. "They're talking about us again?" Jace's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Through the open channels, laughter rippled like poison. "The aliens made no effort to hide their amusement. Is that supposed to be a warship?" The synthesized voice belonged to Ambassador Kethalar of the Valorian Republic, his crystalline features arranged in what passed for a sneer among his kind. "Perhaps they sent their garbage hauler by mistake," added another voice, prompting fresh waves of alien mirth. Nera's knuckles went white where she gripped her console. At 28, she was one of the youngest weapons officers in the fleet, brilliant and fierce, with coal-black hair that she kept regulation short despite how it emphasized the sharp angles of her face. Jace had noticed her stealing glances at him during quiet moments, had caught the way her voice softened when she addressed him directly. But duty came first. Always. "Captain Voss," came the imperious tone of High Admiral Zexion, whose massive dreadnought dominated the Kyrian formation. "I trust you realize this summit is for actual military commanders, not sanitation workers." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems. The crew, barely 30 souls aboard a ship designed for hundreds, waited for their captain's response. Jace had never raised his voice, never lost his composure, but something in his stillness commanded absolute loyalty. "Maintain position," he said quietly to his helmsman. "Monitor all channels." More laughter. More insults. The aliens saw weakness in humanity's small colonies, their young civilization, their apparent desperation in sending such a pathetic vessel to represent their species. Earth's economy was struggling, their military seemingly primitive compared to races that had ruled the stars for millennia. Nera turned in her chair, her dark eyes meeting Jace's briefly. In that moment he saw her frustration, her loyalty, and something deeper that made his chest tighten. "Sir, we could hold position, Lieutenant." His voice remained level, but she caught the subtle emphasis on her rank. "Not here. Not now." Chief Engineer Torres Ryland's voice crackled over the internal comm from deep within the ship. "Captain, all systems are ready." There was something in the older man's tone, a weight that suggested more than routine status reports. Through the viewports, the alien fleets continued their display of superiority. Ships the size of cities maneuvered with predatory grace, their weapons arrays gleaming like jeweled fangs. Energy shields shimmered around hulls that had never known defeat. Ambassador Kethler's voice returned, dripping with false diplomacy. "Surely Earth's government could have afforded something less." "Embarrassing? This vessel appears to be held together with spare parts and wishful thinking. The human ship is an insult to this gathering," declared General Vorthak of the ancient Thanari Imperium. "Send it away before it contaminates our proceedings with its poverty." Jace watched a particularly elegant Sarathi cruiser glide past, its bioluminescent hull pulsing with hypnotic patterns. He'd heard that Princess Veltara herself commanded that vessel, though he couldn't fathom why royalty would concern herself with what the galaxy saw as humanity's inevitable surrender. "Sir," Nera whispered, leaning closer to his position. "What are your orders?" Jace turned his gaze to her, noting how the bridge lighting caught the fierce intelligence in her expression. She deserved better than this rust bucket, better than the humiliation they endured. They all did. We wait, he said simply. And we remember. The alien laughter continued to echo through space, bouncing between ships like a cruel song. But deep within the Defiant's seemingly ramshackle hull, systems hummed quietly in the darkness, patient and deadly, waiting for their moment to sing a very different tune. The galaxy had made its judgment. Soon it would learn the price of mockery. Hearts in the shadow of war. The peace summit had lasted exactly 4 hours before dissolving into threats and ultimatums. Now, 12 hours later, the alien fleets maintained their positions around Nexus Station, while humanity's single representative drifted alone in the void, seemingly forgotten. Captain Jace Voss found Lieutenant Nera Blackwood in the ship's small observation lounge, staring out at the alien armada through the reinforced viewport. The room was barely large enough for 2 people, lit only by the distant stars and the occasional flicker of alien running lights. Couldn't sleep either? He asked quietly, settling into the chair beside her. Nera turned, and in the dim light her features seemed softer somehow. I keep thinking about what Torres said earlier. About the ship being ready. Ready for what, exactly? Jay studied her profile as she gazed back at the stars. 3 years they'd served together, 3 years of shared watches and quiet conversations that never quite crossed the line between professional and personal. But tonight felt different. Tonight, war was coming, and neither of them might see another sunrise. Nera, he began, then stopped. The use of her first name hung between them like a bridge neither had dared cross before. She turned to face him fully, her dark eyes searching his face. "Chase," she whispered back, testing the sound of his name without rank or protocol. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Outside, the alien fleets continued their silent dance of intimidation. But inside this small space, only they existed. "I need to tell you something," Nera said, her voice barely audible. "Before whatever's coming, I need you to know that I—" The ship's comm system crackled to life, interrupting the intimate moment. "Captain, to the bridge," came Torres's gruff voice. "We've got incoming transmissions from multiple alien commanders." Jace closed his eyes briefly, then rose. "Duty calls." Nera caught his hand as he passed, her fingers warm against his. "This conversation isn't over." On the bridge, the main screen displayed a split-channel transmission from 3 alien commanders. High Admiral Zexion's reptilian features dominated the center, flanked by the insectoid General Corax of the Thanari and the crystalline Ambassador Kethalar. "Human!" Zexion's voice dripped contempt. "Your pathetic diplomats have rejected our generous terms. War begins at dawn. We suggest you flee now, while you still can." General Corax clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his species. "One human ship against our combined might. This will be over before it begins." "Unless," came a new voice, melodious and unexpected. "The humans wish to surrender now and spare themselves unnecessary suffering." A 4th transmission window opened, revealing Princess Veltara of the Sarathi Confederation. Unlike the others, her bioluminescent features showed no cruelty, only a strange curiosity. Her large, opalescent eyes seemed to look directly at Jace through the screen. "Your Highness honors us with her attention," Jace replied neutrally, though Nera noticed his tone was warmer than when addressing the other aliens. "I honor courage wherever I find it, Captain Voss. Even doomed courage has its beauty." The princess's words carried an undertone that made Nera's jaw clench involuntarily. Zexion growled with impatience. "Enough poetry. Human, you have 6 hours to clear our space. After that, we will demonstrate why our races have ruled the galaxy for millennia, while yours still crawls in the mud of a single world." The transmissions ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. "Sir," Nera said carefully, "the princess seemed interested in you." Jace caught the slight edge in her voice. She seemed interested in humanity's fate. Nothing more. Torres emerged from the engineering access, wiping grease from his weathered hands. At 55, the chief engineer had seen more battles than the rest of the crew combined, though none quite like what was coming. "Captain," Torres said, his voice carrying decades of hard-won wisdom. "I think it's time you knew exactly what we're carrying down in Section 7. Nira frowned. Section 7 is listed as cargo storage. Torres chuckled grimly. Cargo, right. Captain, remember those supply runs we made to the Titan research station last year? The ones classified above your clearance level? Jace nodded slowly. He'd wondered about those mysterious deliveries, the sealed containers that Torres had personally overseen. Well, Torres continued, let's just say the Defiant isn't quite as defenseless as she looks. The rust bucket appearance? That's intentional. Command wanted something the aliens would ignore, something they'd dismiss as harmless. What kind of weapons are we talking about? Nira asked, her tactical mind already working through possibilities. Torres grinned, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. The kind that make everything out there, he gestured toward the alien fleets, look like toys. Later, as the ship settled into the quiet rhythm of night watch, Jace found himself back in the observation lounge. This time, Nira was waiting for him. 6 hours until war, she said without preamble. 6 hours, he agreed. She moved closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. I don't want to die with words unsaid. Jace reached up, gently touching her cheek. Then say them. I love you, she whispered. I've loved you for months, maybe longer. I know it's against regulations, I know it complicates everything, but... He silenced her with a kiss, soft at first, then deeper as she melted against him. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard. I love you too, he murmured against her forehead. God help me, I love you too. They held each other in the darkness, drawing strength from their shared warmth, while outside, the alien fleets prepared for humanity's destruction. Neither of them noticed the elegant Sarathi cruiser that had moved closer to the Defiant, its princess watching through her own viewport with an expression of growing fascination. The first strike dawn came with the roar of engines and the crimson glow of weapons charging across dozens of alien vessels. The combined fleet had arranged itself in a perfect crescent formation, with the Defiant sitting alone at the focal point like a condemned prisoner awaiting execution. Captain Jace Voss stood on his bridge, freshly showered and in his dress uniform, as if this were a formal ceremony rather than humanity's potential annihilation. Beside him, Lieutenant Nira Blackwood maintained her professional composure, though her fingers lingered near the weapons console with new purpose. Status report, Jace commanded. All alien fleets are in position, Nira replied crisply. I'm reading over 300 vessels, including 12 dreadnoughts and 47 heavy cruisers. Combined firepower estimates suggest they could glass a planet. Chief Engineer Torres appeared on the bridge, looking unusually grim. Captain, I've completed the final calibrations on our special systems. Everything's ready, but I need to warn you, once we reveal what we're carrying, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see humanity the same way again. Before Jace could respond, the comm system erupted with alien voices, their tones ranging from mockery to outright contempt. Behold the might of Earth, sneered General Corax, his insectoid features twisted in cruel amusement. One ship against an armada. Perhaps they plan to ram us? Admiral Zexion's reptilian laugh echoed through the void. I almost pity them. Such ignorance of their own insignificance. But it was Commander Dexval of the Kyrian who spoke the words that would haunt him. This will be over in seconds. I wager their engines will fail before our first salvo reaches them. From her elegant bio-ship, Princess Veltara's transmission carried a different tone entirely. Captain Voss, it is not too late to withdraw. Your courage has been noted, but courage without wisdom is merely suicide. Jace found himself studying the princess's luminescent features on the screen. There was something in her large eyes, concern, perhaps even admiration. It stirred something unexpected in him, a warmth that competed with his feelings for Nira. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness, he replied formally. But humanity will not run. Nira shot him a sharp look, catching the subtle change in his tone when addressing the alien princess. Jealousy flared briefly before being suppressed by professional discipline. The alien fleet began its advance, weapon systems glowing like malevolent stars. Energy shields shimmered to life around hulls designed to inspire terror. The formation moved with predatory grace, confident in their overwhelming superiority. "Captain," Torres said quietly, "I need to show you something before this starts." He activated a holographic display that materialized above the bridge's central console. Instead of the Defiant's familiar schematic, it showed something entirely different. Sleek weapon arrays hidden beneath the ship's ramshackle exterior, power conduits that pulsed with barely contained energy, and at the ship's core, something that defied conventional understanding. "What am I looking at?" Jace asked. "The quantum resonance defense grid," Torres replied. "Every piece of scrap metal on our hull is actually a component in the most sophisticated defensive system ever built. And this," he highlighted the ship's core, "is the molecular disruptor array. It can phase-shift projectiles through normal matter and tear apart molecular bonds at the quantum level." Nira stared at the display in shock. "How is this possible?" "The power requirements alone. 0-point energy extraction," Torres explained grimly. "We're literally borrowing power from the vacuum of space itself. Command spent 20 years developing this technology in absolute secrecy." The alien fleet opened fire. The void exploded with light as hundreds of weapons discharged simultaneously. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and kinetic projectiles screamed toward the lone human vessel. The combined barrage could have shattered a moon, turned a city to ash, obliterated entire fleets. "Brace for impact!" Nira shouted, her hands flying over her console. But Torres was already moving, his weathered fingers dancing across engineering controls. "Initiating resonance grid now." The Defiant's hull began to glow. What had appeared to be rust stains and patch welds suddenly blazed with internal light, forming intricate patterns across the ship's surface. The incoming alien weapons struck and vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed, but completely nullified as their energy was converted and channeled away. On the alien bridges, silence fell like a hammer blow. "Impossible!" whispered Commander Dexval, his scaled features pale with shock. "Their ship should be debris." General Corax clicked frantically. "Our sensors show direct hits, but they're unharmed," Admiral Zexion finished, his voice hollow with disbelief. Jace stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly across all communication channels. "You wanted to see what humanity could accomplish," he said with deadly calm. "Allow me to demonstrate." Torres grinned fiercely as he brought the molecular disruptor array online. Deep within the ship, machinery that shouldn't exist hummed to life, drawing power from the quantum foam itself. "Target acquired," Nira reported, her professional demeanor intact despite the revolutionary technology at her fingertips. "Kyrian heavy cruiser bearing 27 Mark IV. Fire!" Jace commanded. The Defiant's response was almost anticlimactic, a barely visible distortion in space like heat shimmer on a summer day. But when it struck the alien vessel, the effect was anything but subtle. The massive Kyrian cruiser, pride of an empire that had conquered systems for millennia, simply unraveled, its molecular bonds dissolved, its proud hull separating into component atoms that drifted away like glittering dust. 1,200 alien souls had died in perfect silence. The communications channels erupted in panic and disbelief. Orders were shouted, sensors were recalibrated, and theories were desperately proposed. But underneath it all, a new sound began to emerge, the sound of fear. Princess Veltara's transmission appeared on the main screen, her bioluminescent patterns flickering rapidly in what Jace was beginning to recognize as excitement rather than terror. "Magnificent," she breathed, her large eyes fixed on him with something approaching reverence. "Captain Voss, you have just rewritten the rules of warfare itself." Nira felt another stab of jealousy at the princess's obvious fascination with her captain, but it was overshadowed by a growing sense of awe and terror at the weapon she now controlled. "Sir," she said quietly, "what are your orders?" Jace looked out at the alien fleet, watching as their perfect formation began to waver. Fear was a powerful thing, he reflected. It could make the mightiest empires crumble. "Target their flagship," he said simply. "Let's see how much courage they have left." unleashing the storm. The alien armada had stopped laughing. Where moments before there had been confident mockery and casual cruelty, now only desperate voices filled the communication channels. The dissolution of the Kyrion heavy cruiser had sent shockwaves through every alien bridge, shattering their certainty like glass against stone. "All ships maintain formation!" Admiral Zexion's voice cracked with strain as he tried to restore order to his panicking fleet. "It's some kind of trick, an illusion! One ship cannot—" His words cut off as the Defiant's second shot took his flagship's forward section, the massive dreadnought's proud bow simply ceasing to exist in a cascade of liberated atoms. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but the psychological damage was already done. Captain Jace Voss watched the chaos unfold with the same calm expression he'd maintained throughout the ordeal. Beside him, Lieutenant Nera Blackwood worked her console with mechanical precision, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands. "Nera," he said quietly, using her first name despite their being on duty. "Are you all right?" She looked up at him, her dark eyes haunted. "Sir, I've just killed thousands of beings with the press of a button. I'm not sure anyone could be all right after that." Chief Engineer Torres emerged from his engineering station, sweat beading on his weathered forehead. "Captain, the zero-point energy extraction is running hotter than we expected. We can maintain this for maybe another hour before we need to cycle the system." "Will that be enough?" Jace asked. Torres glanced at the tactical display showing the alien fleet's positions. Many ships were already beginning to fall back, their formations crumbling. "Depends on how fast they learn." The answer came swiftly. General Corax of the ancient Thanari Imperium stepped into the communication void left by Zexion's shock. "All vessels concentrate fire on that human abomination." His translated voice chittered with rage. "Saturate the area with everything we have. Nothing can withstand the combined might of our fleets." But even as he spoke, his own certainty was cracking. The Thanari had conquered half the galaxy through sheer brutality and technological superiority. They had faced rebellions, fought wars against species that had ruled the stars longer than Earth had existed. Nothing had prepared them for this. A single vessel that turned their greatest weapons into harmless light shows. The alien fleet opened fire again, this time with everything they possessed. The void blazed with energy as hundreds of ships poured their fury into the space around the Defiant. Plasma storms raged, particle beams crossed like deadly lightning, and kinetic projectiles filled the darkness with streams of destruction. The Defiant's quantum resonance defense grid responded automatically, its hidden arrays converting the incoming devastation into harmless energy that was shunted away into subspace. To the aliens, it appeared as though their weapons were simply vanishing into nothingness. "Impossible," whispered General Vorthak, the ancient Thanari warrior, whose species had been old when most of the galaxy was still learning to make fire. His scarred features showed a recognition that chilled his subordinates. "I have seen this before in the oldest records. Technology that should not exist." "What are you saying?" demanded Commander Dexval, his scaled features pale with terror. "I am saying," Vorthak replied slowly, "that we have awakened something that was meant to sleep." Aboard the Defiant, Jace made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Torres, can we increase the array's power output?" The chief engineer's eyes widened. "Sir, if we push it beyond design parameters, can we do it?" "Yes, but Captain, we're talking about weapons that could sterilize entire systems." "The moral implications." "The moral implications," Nera interrupted, her voice hard as steel, "are that these fleets came here to exterminate humanity. They've made their choice." Jace looked at her, seeing something cold and determined in her expression that both attracted and frightened him. The woman he'd held in his arms the night before was still there, but war was changing them both. A new transmission appeared on the main screen. Princess Veltara, her bioluminescent features pulsing with rapid patterns that Torres's translation software couldn't interpret. "Captain Voss," she said, her melodious voice carrying an urgency that cut through the chaos. "Please, I must speak with you privately. There are things about this conflict you don't understand." Nera's jaw tightened. "Sir, this could be a trap." But something in the princess's large, opalescent eyes gave Jace pause. There was no deception there, no hidden malice, only a desperate sincerity that reminded him uncomfortably of his own feelings of being overwhelmed by forces beyond his control. "Transfer the princess to my ready room," he ordered. "Nira, you have the bridge. If anything moves against us, destroy it." In his private quarters, the holographic projection of Princess Veltara seemed almost solid, her ethereal beauty made more striking by the obvious distress in her expression. "Captain, my people have legends," she began without preamble. Stories of a race that came before, that seeded the galaxy with impossible technologies before vanishing into the dark between stars. "What you carry on this ship, it matches those descriptions." "Are you saying humans are this ancient race?" "No," she replied, moving closer to his desk with fluid grace. "I'm saying you found their legacy. And if the legends are true, what you've unleashed today is only the beginning." Jace felt something twist in his chest as he looked at her, an attraction that warred with his loyalty to Nira. The princess was alien, exotic, from a culture he barely understood, yet there was an intelligence in her eyes, a depth that drew him in despite himself. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because," she said softly, "I believe you are not like the others. You take no joy in slaughter, feel no pleasure in dominance. You could be the bridge between what was and what might be." Before he could respond, Nira's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, we have multiple fleets moving to surround us." "Your orders?" Jace looked at the princess one last time, memorizing her features before duty called him back to the bridge. "Show them," he said quietly, "what happens when gods go to war." The New Order. 6 months after the Battle of Nexus Station, the galaxy had learned a new kind of silence. Commander Nira Blackwood, her promotion had come through the day after the alien fleet surrendered, stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Terran Embassy Station, watching ships from a dozen species approach with tribute and trade agreements. Where once humanity had been ignored, now they commanded audiences with emperors and the respective species that had ruled the stars since before Earth's sun was born. "The Sarathi delegation is requesting another private meeting," she reported to Captain Jace Voss, who stood beside her in dress uniform, his shoulders bearing the weight of unwanted fame. "With me specifically?" he asked, though they both knew the answer. "Princess Veltara seems quite taken with humanity's representative," Nira replied carefully, her professional tone not quite masking the edge of jealousy that still lingered. Their relationship had deepened in the months since the battle. Stolen moments of intimacy between diplomatic meetings and strategic planning sessions. But the princess's obvious fascination with Jace remained a persistent shadow between them. "Sir," Chief Engineer Torres approached, now bearing the insignia of a full commander and head of Terran Advanced Weapons Development. "The Collective Council is ready for your address." The main conference hall was a marvel of multi-species accommodation, with atmospheric zones for methane breathers, gravity wells for high-density species, and translation matrices that could handle the most complex alien languages. Representatives from every major power in the galaxy had gathered, some willingly, others with the bitter resignation of the defeated. At the center of it all sat the former enemies of humanity. General Vorthak of the Thanari Imperium, his ancient scarred features bearing new lines of exhaustion and grudging respect. Admiral Zexion, his reptilian pride broken but his tactical mind still sharp. Even General Korax, clicking his mandibles in patterns that the translators interpreted as nervous submission. And there, in a place of honor that no one dared contest, Princess Veltara of the Sarathi Confederation. Her bioluminescent patterns had grown more complex in recent months, displaying colors that her own people whispered carried meanings lost to their ancestors. Jace rose to address the assembly, his calm presence commanding attention without effort. In the months since the battle, he had become something more than a captain, a symbol of humanity's unexpected ascension, a figure that inspired both hope and terror throughout the galaxy. 6 months ago, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, many of you believed that humanity was weak, insignificant, unworthy of respect. Some of you came to our borders with fleets, intending to take what you believed we could not defend. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. The wreckage of their combined armadas still drifted in the Nexus system, a silent monument to their miscalculation. But we are not here to dwell on past mistakes, Jace continued. We are here to build a future where such conflicts become impossible. Princess Veltara leaned forward, her large eyes fixed on his face with an intensity that made Nira's hands clench. The princess had been coming to these sessions for months, ostensibly as a diplomatic observer, but her attention never wavered from Jace himself. The Terran Defense Compact offers protection to any species willing to abide by its principles, Jace announced. No more will smaller civilizations live in fear of their neighbors' ambitions. No more will technological advantages be used to justify conquest. General Vorthak spoke, his translated voice carrying centuries of weariness. And if we refuse this compact? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jace's expression didn't change, but something in his stillness made even the most powerful beings in the galaxy hold their breath. Then you remain free to pursue your own destiny, he replied simply. But you will do so without threatening others. The implications were clear. The Defiant and her sister ships, 5 more vessels had been constructed using the recovered ancient technology, patrolled the galaxy's trade routes now. Their very existence had ended the age of conquest, replacing it with an age of cautious cooperation. After the formal sessions, Jace found himself in the embassy's private garden, a carefully maintained space that reminded him of Earth's forests. Nira joined him there, as she often did during these quiet moments. "The princess asked to speak with you again," she said, settling beside him on a bench overlooking an artificial stream. "I know." Jace took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Nira, you know that what we have—" "I know," she interrupted softly. "But